I'm Mike.
I'm Sam. Let's get into it.
You guys can point the finger at him. You can talk about the vacation. And if you do that, it's really unfair. It's really unfair. It's my team. It's my quarterback.
Welcome back to the Mike and Sam Sports Show. It's episode 62. It's been a little bit, but we're back. We're back in the groove of things. We got some segments we're going to do for today's episode. We're going to start off with the daily news of some daily news sports. We're going to do our weekly quarterback. We're going to give one quarterback the Gent of the week who had the best performance and one of the Sweep of the week who had the worst performance. And then we're going to end off the show with our week 2 NFL weekly pick'em. So let's get into our first segment of daily news. I know you're dying to ask me. You want to hear me rant about the Ohio State loss against Oregon. So I'll let you see what you have to say.
Rant away my Ohio State friend. Yeah, it's just, man, it's just the nature of college football. Like, one loss gets you completely out of the playoffs. Now, I guess you're kind of preying on Alabama and all those other teams' downfalls, but man, this is just so disappointing for Ohio State. That's about all I have to say. I would love for you to rant right now, though. Go ahead, Sam. The floor is yours.
So we go into the game after we played Minnesota. It was a terrible first half against Minnesota. Like, Stroud looked shaky. We couldn't move the ball. They were just firing on all cylinders against us. And then we settled down in the second half. So I'm in that stadium. I'm like, the first half ends, and I'm like, all right, maybe it'll be like the Minnesota game. And then we come back out, and then Oregon's just firing on all cylinders again. We can't stop them. And it's just like, it was just at a point in the game when we were too far behind them. Like, it was a one touchdown game, but like they just had so much momentum ahead of us that there's no way we were going to catch them. Like, and that one pivotal game, like the pivotal point of the game is we were driving to tie the game up, and CJ Stroud, who some say he had a great game. I think he was the Big Ten player of the week. He threw for like 400 yards, had an 81.2 QB rating, which is a very, very good QB rating. But he just floated it over, I think it was Olave's head. It was just a terrible interception. With me, Stroud had just 2 good games. He's thrown for a lot of yards, kind of similar to like Haskins-esque. But like, for me, he's just not doing that. He just doesn't have that that it factor that's going to put him over the edge. He doesn't have that it factor that Justin Fields had. I know it's kind of a tough comparison to make when Justin Fields is, was a first-round pick and everybody's in love with him. But he just doesn't have it. I just don't see him being able to make, some of the throws and just be, have that grit late in the game to like grind out some of these important games like we just saw against Oregon.
Yeah, I know this sounds weird, but I think 28 points is a very weird threshold offensively, because if you score 28 points, you had success on offense that day, but that leaves enough possessions that are kind of just unfulfilled to the point where you kind of still wonder what happened offensively that game. Because I know Ohio State, again, the stats look great. When I look at the stats, it's like, wow, Ohio State's offense was fantastic, but I feel like they still left some to be left desired. Would that be an accurate statement?
I mean, you look at the stats, like the eye test versus the stat test is completely different. You look at the stats. I'm pulling them up real quick. Yeah. I'm a little ill prepared, but I think we had 3 receivers: Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba in triple figures for receivers.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
Same. But our running, we had. Mine Williams had 14 carries, 77 yards. That's like nothing, with that amount of production. We were so overwhelming with the eye test, if that's the only way you want to do it. But the big thing is our defense. Our defense was absolutely disgusting. We couldn't stop the ball. They were running wild on us. I think CJ Varela is his name. He had 20 carries with 161 yards. And that's supposed to be the strong suit of our defense is our front seven, not even our secondary. So our strong part was failing. So I saw Ryan Day was saying, after this game, we're going to have to, build our defense up from the top bottom after that game. But, even if you do try to change it, like, we're so young, we're so inexperienced, I just don't see it, being that much of a difference. I know next week we have Tulsa, the week after we have Akron. So there are 2 games where we can just, drop 80 on a team and get our confidence back. Yeah. But this is a tough game. we're gonna have to win out. We're gonna have to win the Big Ten. We're gonna hope. You kind of have to hope Oregon wins out, so it's not that bad.
Yeah.
If Oregon's ranked like 2 or 3 in the nation, then it's kind of better on us that we fought so hard against this one team and not like it's not like if we lost to Indiana, who's going to be unranked or something like that. It's a solid loss. It's not like it's a Purdue of a couple years ago or Iowa of a couple years ago.
Yeah, if Oregon loses, I would say 3 games this college football season, you guys are probably done. With that being said, defensively, the thing about college football, you can't trade for anyone. Like, what's the answer defensively? And for this team, do you maybe want to take more of a conservative, control the clock on offense, run the ball, and not get flashy with our passing game because you're not that confident in your quarterback, just to ease off the pressure of the defense, since your defense, again, like you said, is young, is inexperienced, and really is not living up to the potential that was the outlook on this season for this defense?
I mean, you could do that, but it's so hard. You have like young kids, like trigger happy kids on the offense as well.
Yeah.
We don't have Justin Fields. We don't have a JT Barrett that obviously if JT was in there, we would game manager.
Yeah, he's a great
Stroud's a redshirt freshman. Our running backs, Mine Williams, and I'm forgetting the other guy's name, Travion Henderson, I believe. They're taking snaps away as like freshmen and sophomores away from Master Teague, who is like a senior. So our team's just young, top to bottom. So it's hard to do some of these like these veteran things that Ryan Day might want to do with them. It's more like you got a young team, you got to get them experience on their belt. So like it's a hard game. It's just I'm in the student section. I'm screaming my head off. My voice is gone. And then I just see, all the Oregon fans, chanting louder than us because we're so, depressed. And then the Oregon team just runs to their section and they're just going crazy. And then the worst thing is Javion Thibodeau and Justin Flo, Oregon's 2 best players, didn't even play. So they beat us without their 2 best players. It was awful. My first loss in the regular season, I've seen Ohio State. My time at Ohio State.
That's brutal. What was the mood around the campus?
Well, if when we win, we leave the stadium. There's a tradition that like we do our chant. We don't give a damn about the whole state of Michigan, and the bell rings. But after we left the stadium, like no one was talking. It was very, very somber. It was a very somber moment.
I'm honestly very glad I didn't end up going to that game. I saw the progression of like Snapchat stories that day. It was honestly hilarious. Like it was like first quarter, oh, we're doing the chant, and like at kickoff we're so hyped, and it was just like the slow progression of a death. It was very funny, but at the same time it was pretty depressing.
No, yeah, we were jumping up and down, and then like they would score, and we slowly got depressed, and then we would score, and then we started jumping up and down again, and then we would just slowly get depressed again, and it was a seesaw of emotions the whole game.
Man, it's that Ohio State. Well, maybe let's move on to some more positive news. What else do you have in the weekly cycle of sports news, Sam?
Well, I'll talk about another college football topic. USC fired their coach, Clay Helton, I believe his name is, after a tough loss to Stanford, Stanford for a while under, Jim Harbaugh and David Shaw have been a very powerful program, but of the couple last years, they haven't been that great. They blew USC off. They fired their coach, and now speculations are swirling. Who's going to be the next head coach? I know Bickle from Cincinnati, who is currently ranked 7 as a non-Power 5 team. Iowa State's Matt Campbell is a candidate, and then the Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy is also a candidate. Which Eric Bieniemy, I mean, like the past 2 years, he's been the the number one candidate of every team. Like, oh, this team's gonna get Eric Bieniemy. This team's gonna. No, he's very
I don't think the NFL wants him, man.
That is true. I don't know if the NFL wants him, but everybody's saying he's the top guy, but he just doesn't get that opportunity. So maybe you going to college and just dominating college might give him the opportunity to later coach in the NFL.
Man, again, like you said, let's talk about Eric Bieniemy here for a second, this USC job. First off, I think this would be the route to go for Eric Bieniemy to kind of prove his worthiness in the NFL, because I think it's very clear that NFL teams don't want him at the head coaching position. In fact, I think he would struggle to find an offensive coordinator job in anywhere else but Kansas City. I'll get into why I believe that is the case in a minute, but just kind of a funny side note. If Eric Bieniemy ever becomes a college coach, they better pray that they don't have Colorado Boulder on their schedule, because if they do, then Eric Bieniemy is not going to be able to coach that game. I believe, if I am not mistaken, to this day, Eric Bieniemy is banned from stepping on Colorado Boulder's campus. He is
What?
banned from the premise.
Why is it? Why? How is that even
Yes.
happened?
So Eric Bieniemy, man, he has a criminal past. He's done some sketchy things in the 90s. I know it was the 90s. I know it was like a wild crackdown on crime, but I know he has assault, battery, robbery, I believe, as well in his past, which I know it's in his past. I think it's still very funny that he's banned from Colorado Boulder's campus. I would have to look a little bit more into that. I believe it was his alma mater at some point, and at some point he got kicked off for doing something bad enough to get him still banned today. But with Eric Bieniemy, man, I can't help but watch every single Chiefs game, and it happened again on Sunday. It's been happening 2 years in a row where they come out, they're out coached for 3 quarters, and it's just the Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce show for the fourth quarter. And just based on that talent alone, they end up winning the game. Like, show me an impressive coaching job by Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid the past 2 years. I can't find one. They're good in spite of their coaching, in my opinion. They come out flat every single game, and they come from behind every single game. They play up and down to their competition week in and week out. That's the sign of a really bad coach. That's a sign of a bad culture, not a good culture. So again, taking this Kansas City Chiefs team, who shouldn't be playing down to the Jets last year. They shouldn't be playing down to they shouldn't lose to the Raiders. They shouldn't almost lose every single game they play in like they did last year. Again, it happened last week against the Browns, and they got very lucky with that drop punt. So, what are you impressed by with Eric Bieniemy? Maybe the development of Patrick Mahomes. That's it. But I don't know how much you can fall that on Patrick Mahomes or Eric Bieniemy's shoulders. I feel like that was more Andy Reid, if anything. So I think all the reasons I listed, his criminal background, kind of the question of the effect he has on the Chiefs, and just the lack of really impressiveness out of this Chiefs coaching staff as a whole. I think that's why the NFL doesn't want Eric Bieniemy. So again, I think this USC job would be perfect for him.
Yeah, it's just, I think, teams around football, college, or NFL, whatnot, they're in love with the Andy Reid coaching tree. They see so many, branches on that tree that are just so, flourishing, and then others like Doug Peterson, who won the Super Bowl and then just crashed and burned after that. So
Yeah.
I know why a lot of people in the NFL world, that's why they say it. Bieniemy is such a sought after candidate because of the Andy Reid coaching tree. But for me, for USC, I know they're always good. Not like they're good. They're like mid, high tens, low teens, 12, 13 around there. But they're never since Pete Carroll is gone, they're never a perennial top 5 team in the country. So I feel like if you get a Matt Campbell in there who turned around Iowa State, who made that team a powerhouse team. They were in the Big 12 championship last year. They're returning 20 of the 22 starters, so I can see them being a dark horse to win the Big 12, even though a lot of people think Oklahoma's the best team in the country, which time for a different story. I'm not really sold on Spencer Rattler, but I think Iowa State can win the Big 12, and I can see Matt Campbell leaving and going to USC and turning them around, making them a powerhouse. I mean, Matt Campbell's a really good coach. I just think with the case with Bickle, I think he's in love with Cincinnati. He loves, coaching this underdog team. So I don't really see him leaving. But Matt Campbell, he's young. He knows how to recruit talent. I think it would be a very fun place for him to coach. I also saw some reports saying that their OC might become he's going to become their interim head coach, and he is a candidate to become the full-time head coach because apparently he's a hell of a recruiter. The players love him. So once you have your players buy into you, similar to going to the NFL, Nick Sirianni, the players seemed to buy into him, and they were firing on all cylinders on Sunday against the Falcons. So I feel like if your team buys into a coach, then you can be successful. So maybe the USC Trojans don't even need to look after one of these candidates. They can just stay in-house and keep their offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I think it's good for continuity reasons. It's good for kind of seamlessly having a scheme that's already familiar with the players to kind of transition into. I think the sexy pick would be Eric Bieniemy, kind of as a, hey guys, this is the guy that developed Patrick Mahomes, come to us. But I don't know if that would be the smart pick. I definitely think some of the candidates you laid out would be the smart decision.
You see, I mean, college football. There's like when you look at the history of college football, there's just like a group of teams that college football is better when these teams are good. And I would say USC, Miami, like college football is better when those types of teams are those fun teams are good. But talking about more coaching in the daily news. I know this is a topic you're very passionate about. I'm kind of a little somber to talk about since I'm a fan of his. But Urban Meyer, his first NFL coaching debut did not pan out the way we thought it was going to be. You know, everybody's saying the Texans are going to be the worst team in the NFL, and then just go out there and Tyrod Taylor puts on a show. They rallied around each other and they beat Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence throwing 3 interceptions in his debut. So, how do you feel about Urban Meyer and what is to come for these Jacksonville Jaguars?
First off, man, I guess I'll give the Texans a little bit credit where credit is due. They kind of have like a no-name, like reject kind of band of rejects defense. A bunch of guys like Vernon Hargreaves, for example, Eric Murray, who these guys are former first-round picks, kind of rejected by their old team and are on one-year deals, trying to really prop up their career on the Texans. So they're hungry. I think they're a little bit better than people gave them credit for. I still think the Texans are probably going to be a bottom 5 team in the NFL this season, though. And they just blew out the Jaguars. Oh, man, I don't even know where to start with Urban Meyer. I mean, I guess the stat where in his tenure with Ohio State, I want to say he lost 7 games with Ohio State. I mean, he can lose the first 7 games of the season. I mean, first off, oh, man, like such a bad weekend for you, Sam. I feel so bad. Like every stat that was being thrown out Friday, Saturday, Sunday was like anti-Ohio State, anti-Colts. I even saw the last win the freaking Jaguars had is the Colts, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
That's such a long streak to go on. I believe they have the 3rd longest losing streak in NFL history right now, 3rd or 4th. They're in danger of being in first. I think they have to lose the first like 10 games of this season to have the longest losing streak in the modern era of football.
Who's the
And
longest?
for
Is
Urban Meyer, man, the Buccaneers, I
Yeah,
believe, the expansion.
Buccaneers with the creamsicle uniforms.
Yeah. I love how I think second are like the Chicago Cardinals in the 40s. Of course, the Cardinals had to get a negative stat in there, right? But just oh man, Urban Meyer. I just don't get the signing. I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence played pretty good in this game. He looked like the first pick in the draft. I know he had 3 interceptions. He had some bad throws in there. But like watching Urban Meyer, I was like, Urban Meyer makes Cliff Kingsbury look like Sean McVay, like with the schematics on offense. It was just horrible. It was just like a weird vanilla scheme they're running, like a weird like vanilla pro style offense. This team's not very talented, but man, the players haven't bought. You just talked about buying in. I know the players don't buy into Urban Meyer. We've been hearing it all off season. We've been hearing it since he's gotten hired, and it just continues to show for this football team. I feel really bad for Trevor Lawrence. This Jacksonville Jaguars team continues to make compulsive decisions that seem good in the moment, maybe end up being good in the moment, but they're just stupid for the future. Even kind of how they assembled and disassembled that 2018 AFC Championship contender team. Just this, I don't know what this organization needs, man. They led the league in player fines for years under the Tom Coughlin era, and now under the Urban Meyer era, they already were heavily fined this offseason. I don't know what the answer is with Urban Meyer. He has me kind of dumbfounded. I thought he would be the worst coach in the league. I didn't think he'd be this bad, though. I'll be honest. What are your thoughts on Urban Meyer, though?
Urban just like I just think he's a thoroughbred college football coach. I think he needs to have, he needs to be the guy. He needs to be the GM, the coach, all in one. Like, I don't think he just
Yeah.
I think it might be a little bit of a power, battle with, the players. He's used to being surrounded by like 18-year-old, 19-year-olds, 20-year-old kids, and not 30-year-old men who are just, all alphas in the room. I just think he struggles to be able to control. Like you said, he doesn't have the locker room won over yet, because I think he's just used to being in a college locker room where they're expected to, come to Ohio State, and Urban Meyer's kind of like this godlike figure. Where in the NFL, there is really no godlike figure.
He's no one,
Yeah, he's a 56-year-old man who's in his first season as an NFL head coach. If you want to go to a godlike figure in the NFL, you're going to go to Belichick, Andy Reid. You're not going to. He's kind of just like an old geezer in the NFL. The NFL is moving towards younger head coaches with McVay, and they're showing, and you said Cliff Kingsbury, and they're showing off. It's going to be hard for a 56-year-old man to go in there, using the same offense he has for his whole career, and then go into the NFL and try to, make a boom when he's just used to being a coach of programs like Ohio State and Florida, where he's getting the best talent in the world. And, I saw something that said this was Trevor Lawrence's first, loss since he was in high school. So they're both going to be struggling to, knowing the fact that they're going to be losing every week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that I hear a lot of former NFL players talking about, and I think college coaches don't understand, is in college, the locker room culture, the coaches establish the leadership presence in the locker room. In the NFL, it's the players. The players establish the culture. You need to have a hands-off approach to your locker room. And I think the hands-on approach Urban Meyer has had on his locker room thus far in his NFL career, kind of meddling with things that shouldn't be meddled with, has kind of been his downfall so far with the players. I think Urban Meyer likes to surround himself with not only people he thinks are going to be successful at his job. I think he likes surrounding people that he can call a friend outside of work, people he can personally trust, people who he could, have their kids call him Uncle Urban, like literally. I think he likes having like really close knit friends around him. And I think that's been another issue with Urban Meyer, really not hiring the correct staff around him and not having the correct resources to kind of propel his inexperience into a winning season.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm curious to see how long he lasts. I mean, how long do you think he's gonna last in the NFL on his pretty massive contract, I believe, with the Jaguars?
I think he is going to get fired at the end of the season. I think it is more likely that he gets fired mid-season or he quits mid-season rather than he returns next year. I think the first thing is more likely, in my opinion, but I do think he's going to last the season and get fired at the end of the season.
I'm going to give him 1.5 or 2 years, and then he's going to leave and go back to Big Noon Kickoff.
Man, poor Trevor Lawrence, though. God bless him. I mean, poor Zach Wilson, too, man. Zach Wilson was on his back the entire game, too.
And Zach Wilson, he made some good throws.
He did.
I just think, it's a descent from to hell if you get drafted by the New York Jets. I mean, he lost his cornerstone lineman with, Mekhi Becton going out for probably the year, right?
Yeah.
So it's
very bad.
Let's move into our next topic. We'll get into some quarterback play. Our segment that we're going to do for the rest of the NFL season, weekly quarterback. We're going to give out some awards, the best quarterback, the worst quarterback of the week. But before we do that, let's just, overarching, talk about some quarterbacks we liked, some quarterbacks we didn't like. We can get into the rookies, which surprisingly we saw all 4 of the rookies step on the field for at least some sort of, regular season football. So I'll start off in saying I was very, very impressed by McCorkle Jones's performance this week. He looked like a veteran. He was making some great throws, looked comfortable. I think the Patriots, if the Bills, the Bills play like they did for the rest of the year, I think the Patriots can fight to win this division.
Here's the sole difference between McCorkle Jones and Thomas Brady. Luck, Sam, luck. In 364 starts with the New England Patriots, when the New England Patriots were down between 1 and 5 points, the amount of players who fumbled for Tom Brady in 364 games, one. It happened one time. Mac Jones, in the same situation in one game, it's happened one time. That is the reason Mac Jones is not going to be Tom Brady. That's the reason that the Patriots aren't going to have another 6 Super Bowl win dynasty. Not because Mac Jones is that much less talented than Tom Brady. It's because the unbelievable circumstance and luck surrounding Tom Brady's career is impossible to be duplicated by another player in the NFL in history. It's that simple. Look no further than Thursday night. If you look at Tom Brady's team's stats in terms of field goal percentage kicked against them, it's ridiculous. Everybody else in the NFL, you look at Peyton Manning's Colts, you look at Drew Brees' Saints, you look at Aaron Rodgers' Packers, they're all 85, 86, 87%. The field goal percentage kicked against Tom Brady is like 74%. Those are the little things that Tom Brady can't even control, or hell, his teams can barely even control. That luck goes on his side. The only reason Tom Brady won on Thursday is because why? Greg Zuerlein missed those 2 chip shot field goals. So for Mac Jones, I'm calling him freaking Tom Brady because he looked like Tom Brady out there. But the only difference is he didn't have luck on his side.
Right. He was just making throws that Tom Brady would make his whole career. Like he had zip on it. He was like poised in the pocket. I mean, also like their defense, maybe not quite their secondary, but their defense was looking like Patriot defenses of old that were, hitting the quarterback.
Yeah.
Matthew Judon had that, that hit on Tua that caused him to throw the interception. So this Patriot team is looking scary. And if they're able to have a little luck on their side, a little bit of Andrew Luck's beard in the air, maybe they'll be able to make the playoffs.
Let's not hope he has Andrew Luck's luck, or else he'll be out of the NFL in about 8 years.
I mean, he almost was out. Wasn't there one play that he almost, got his knees destroyed at one point in the game? I wasn't really watching too much of the game.
Yeah, I was watching that game on and off. I went back and rewatched the highlights too, which, of course, take that with a grain of salt. Man, talking about the Alabama quarterback bowl a little bit more, Tua turned the ball over. The thing that worries me about Tua turn the ball over is that week 1 game plan from the Dolphins offensively looked like Matt Nagy's game plan with Chase Daniels. It looked like, the Buccaneers game plan if they had Blaine Gabbert in. Like, they were playing as though they had a backup quarterback in. And for your week 1 game plan to be designed to basically hide your quarterback at all costs, that's a panic button red alarm. Like, that's very, very, very frightening for the Dolphins. They have no confidence in the guy. That's what kills me about the Dolphins. And that's where I'll give Tua kind of leeway a little bit. He got drafted to a franchise that just doesn't believe in him, and I feel bad for him for that. I mean, there's still Deshaun Watson rumors going around with the Dolphins, which is just ridiculous.
I know, with the rumors going around, and Brian Flores, said out in the public that Tua was our quarterback. But I just don't trust. I think neither of us trusted Tua since he got drafted. I just think he just lacks, some of the intangibles that other quarterback, like he lacks the intangibles that Mac Jones, his former teammate, has, and he lacks the intangibles that Jalen Hurts, his former teammate, has. I just don't think Tua has really, an NFL quarterback or an NFL starter for that matter.
But man, not only does he not have the intangibles, he's not physically talented. He doesn't throw the ball. He has a below average arm, below average accuracy, below average ball placement. He's kind of fast, but physically he has a very unideal frame. I've just never seen it with Tua. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how the rest of the season. I mean, they don't have Fitzpatrick on this roster to kind of like sub him in and out like they did last year, so it's kind of
Yeah.
He's gonna be in there a whole season. So curious to see how the season plays out. Another game I want to talk about, both the quarterback plays, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Cleveland Browns with probably the best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, and Baker Mayfield, Baker played good, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, but like that 1 interception at the game, I wouldn't really put that 1 interception on him. He was clearly trying to loft it out of balance, and just the way he got hit, it just came out lower than he expected.
Yeah.
I don't fault him for that, but I think the Browns were just limited by Baker just a little bit. I know he's not able to, make some of the crazy throws that someone like Mahomes or Kyler Murray is able to make. He's just kind of I would say he's above average game manager in the pocket for them.
Yeah, I mean, with the progression of the quarterback position and how much it's grown and how much it's gotten better, he's definitely better than a 2015 Andy Dalton, but he's kind of, in my opinion, honestly, the modern era version of an Andy Dalton in the sense that like he's average. He's average. I think he's around the 15th best quarterback or so. You can win a Super Bowl with him, but you kind of need everything to go perfectly. You can't have your punter dropping an easy ball in his hands. You can't have the defense giving up 2 really quick touchdowns, even if it's up against the Chiefs. You can't have Nick Chubb, who I love Nick Chubb, but he does have a bit of a fumbling problem. Yeah. It's always weird to see a guy out there with no gloves on, and that always irks me about Nick Chubb. I'm like, put some gloves on, maybe not fumble as less. That's a little irrelevant point, though, I just made. But with Baker Mayfield, again, everything has to go perfect. And let's be honest here, Sam, not everything's going to go perfect for the Cleveland Browns. They're the Cleveland Browns. They need a quarterback who can get them over the hump without being perfect. And Baker Mayfield is just not that guy.
I mean, like, there was that one play where Mahomes ran for that touchdown. Like, he started off like 30 yards in the backfield, got to the line of scrimmage, and I was like, all right, maybe he'll slide for a 1 or 2 yard gain. But somehow he got through like 5 people on the Browns defense and scored a touchdown. Like, if you want to win the game, if you want Baker to play a good game and you still want to win the game, you can't let Mahomes just dodge and weave through your whole defense for a touchdown. Like, those were just silly points that they let up. And like you said, the kicker or the punter, dropping the punt. He picked it up. He still clearly probably could have punted it, but decided to try to run for it. I mean, I live with a lot of Browns fans.
Yeah.
I just slowly watch their emotions go from ecstatic to, maybe find a bridge to jump off of for them. But it was just like the Browns are a good team, but I just know that, the talks are already starting to come about. Like, are we going to pay Baker Mayfield? So if they pay Baker like that, this great roster that they have is slowly going to fall apart. They're not going to be able to keep Chubb. They're not going to be able to keep players like Kareem Hunt.
No, it's a good point. I wonder when teams will put their foot down, because I don't think an NFL team really off the top of my head is legitimately put their foot down on a really good quarterback who that great quarterback is not in that upper echelon, the mistake fixer type quarterbacks, I like to call him. He's the I won't commit mistakes, but I won't fix mistakes tier of quarterbacks. The Jared Goff quarterbacks. There hasn't been a team to step up to that guy because they're so afraid of not having a quarterback better than Baker Mayfield. I don't know. I really like Baker, and I think it seems like asinine at the moment to say don't re-sign him, but don't re-sign him for 40 mil. Don't re-sign him for 30 mil. If you can get him on like a Ryan Tannehill-esque contract, that would be ideal. Jumping into Ryan Tannehill, though, man, every time I watch Ryan Tannehill on the Titans, I'm like, show me a single thing he's gotten better at since he was on the Dolphins, because I think he was always very underrated on the Dolphins. I think he was always a good quarterback on the Dolphins. I mean, Sam, name a quarterback better than Dan Marino. What, maybe Chad Pennington? Maybe before his arm completely fell off a cliff, but that was more Jets. I mean, I think Tannehill, you can argue, was the best quarterback in Dolphins history since Marino. And when you have him on this Titans team, all of a sudden people are going from he's trash to he's a top 10 quarterback. I think the truth lies somewhere in between the middle. Watching this game, I watch every snap of this game as a Cardinals fan. He's just fine, man. But Ryan Tannehill, I could probably name 20, 25 quarterbacks I rather have on third and longs. That's always been his issue. He's not good at converting third and long. And that was kind of the issue for the Titans in that game.
I mean, I think that I think Tannehill gets, bailed out by Derrick Henry, by AJ Brown. I mean, I know this was probably the worst game I've ever seen Julio Jones play, but I think a lot of
by far
the past couple of years, Tannehill's been able to rely on these studs on his team to be able to make good plays. I know like they have the best. I'm pretty sure they have the best like red zone efficiency in the NFL since Tannehill's joined the team. I just think they have really good coaching, but man, I feel bad for Tannehill. He got lit up by your boy Chandler Jones this whole game. When he have 5 sacks, like so he was just getting
Taylor Lewan sucks, man. Yeah, Taylor Lewan sucks. I think he sucked for years now, to be honest. He's kind of riding on the coattails of Barstool Sports, his name. He's a funny guy. The video of Josh Norman is hilarious. Will always go down in infancy. You know what I mean? Will always go down as a legendary moment. But Taylor Lewan sucks, and he has sucked for the past couple of years now. I remember a mic'd up moment of him, I want to say 2 years ago. He was going around the sideline. I know, guys, my holding penalties are an issue. I know, I'm sucking right now. It's like, dude, you're trash. Like, he goes to Twitter and admits he's trash, and everyone, like, forgives that he's not good. It's like, no, Taylor Lewan is really bad. That's my quick Taylor Lewan rant right there. Chandler Jones, we're screwed about Chandler Jones. There's no way he stays with the Cardinals for another year. We just don't want to pay him, and he wants money. That's a whole different issue. My main takeaway from that Cardinals game, though, was Isaiah Simmons, man. Finally, Isaiah Simmons looks like Clemson Isaiah Simmons. He was playing box safety. He was playing free safety. He was playing rover. He was playing Mike. He was playing Will. He was on the defensive line. If you want one reason why Derrick Henry didn't do good, it was Isaiah Simmons. He looked incredible in this game, and I'm very happy to be able to truthfully say that.
And the Cardinals, the Cardinals looked like a legit playoff team. But like you said, they're not going to sign Chandler Jones, but I feel like that would be a massive mistake. Their secondary looked good. I think, Isaiah Simmons looked so good just because Chandler Jones was opening so many opportunities for these other players to make big plays in the defensive ball. Chandler Jones goes in there and he's putting pressure on them, and these young guys that may be inexperienced were able to, flourish with, a veteran. That's why you look like you look at the Broncos defense the past couple of years, like maybe going back to the Super Bowl in 2015. Like they were so good. That team was so good, but a lot of the stars were made just because Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware were putting so much pressure on the quarterback that I know Chris Harris Jr. probably was one of the best cornerbacks of the decade, but like he was able to make so many plays because quarterbacks were rushing throws because they were getting barreled down on by Von Miller. Like this Cardinals secondary is going to be able to perform well because quarterbacks like Ryan Tannehill are rushing throws because Chandler Jones is breathing down their neck. Like if the Cardinals let him walk, I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, man. I mean, if we re-sign him to, let's say, a 5-year contract, I guess we'll take the approach of if he's really good for us in the first 2 years of his contract, then it's a really bad, invaluable contract the last 3 years, but we get a Super Bowl out of it. It's worth it. So if we could take that approach to it, I think it's fine. I rather overpay him a little bit rather than not have him at all. But I can't help but think with Chandler Jones, ever since I started becoming a big MMA fan, I always view Chandler Jones as John Jones' little brother. And to be John Jones' little brother, it's like I feel like I'm a teacher right now who just dealt with a really, really bad, misbehaved older brother. And then I see Jones on the attendance sheet, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Hi, Chandler Jones. How are you? Are you brothers with – yeah. Do you know Bones Jones? Do you do steroids with your brother? Do you do drugs with your brother? Do you do illegal things with your brother? I hope not. I always see you guys drunk at nightclubs. Dude, I just low key sit at my phone and am waiting for the day that says Chandler Jones involved in a hit and run on a pregnant woman, just like Bones Jones was. I know Chandler Jones had that one weird mix up with the cops. I want to say it was at near the beginning of his career with the Patriots. He hasn't had anything else since. I just have a weird feeling about Chandler Jones. We're going to re-sign him to a huge contract. He's going to wild out, then he's going to get in trouble. That's just my Chandler Jones two cents, though.
Well, like, I just think, he might be a good mentor now. Like, we haven't seen him in the news, and that I think if he's a good mentor, that's good for Isaiah Simmons because, like you said, he's finally becoming like the Clemson player that he was. Like, last year he's a little shaky, but if he's able to have, that other guy on the defense that's making big plays, I think Isaiah Simmons, that's going to give him more leeway to, run around the field and make tackles. I think like Chandler Jones. He's kind of like a cornerstone on your defense right now.
He is. I mean, in terms of leadership, I think he brings zero to the table, to be completely honest with you. From everything I've seen, I think J.J. Watt has had a great deal of influence on these young defensive players so far. It was J.J. Watt taking Zaven Collins out to lunch, taking these guys out to lunch, not really Chandler Jones. I think Chandler Jones is kind of focused on himself and his money a little bit more than the team, which I don't like players like that, but he's so freaking talented that I don't care. But Chandler Jones, yeah, he deserves to get paid. Cardinals should definitely pay the man.
How'd our boy Marco Wilson do? I didn't really watch much of the game.
Dude, Marco Wilson freaking locked up Julio Jones all game. It was so exciting. Marco Wilson played great. He stayed on his side. He played outside corner for us. He was up against A.J. Brown a little bit more than Julio Jones was. Julio Jones was primarily covered by our boy Byron Murphy, but Marco Wilson played so good. What was that?
Said Byron Murphy from Washington. You guys got a sneaky secondary with Marco Wilson, Byron Murphy, and Budda Baker.
We do, man. I love Marco Wilson. I think I might have been right about Marco Wilson. He was making Julio Jones frustrated all day. I know, again, it was Byron Murphy who ended up being that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty drawn on him from Julio Jones, which was really nice for us. That was a pretty big moment early on in the game because he was really frustrating Julio Jones. Again, Julio Jones, man, just couldn't get anything frustrating. If there's something I hate the most in the world out of football players, it's when they're playing like trash and they start getting really frustrated and commit penalties like that. So that's kind of what Julio Jones did.
Yeah, I think Julio is just not used to he's used to having his way with quarterbacks and not, getting tossed around. But going into the quarterback play of this game more, I want to give out my Gent of a Week of award to the one and only Kyler Murray. 5 total touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, he just looked faster and just better than everybody else on the field in this game. I mean, there's that when he ran the touchdown and he was like 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage when he put the ball up because he knew he was going to score and no one was going to catch him. That one throw when it was like the meme when it's like, fuck it, DeAndre Hopkins down there somewhere. I know it was to Christian Kirk, but
yeah,
he just backheeled it. Just chucked it, and it was just right in the breadbasket. It was a perfect throw, and it just looked like he wasn't intending it to be a perfect throw. He was just like the flick of the wrist, and it's just right where it has to be. I know Hopkins played really well, those 2 touchdowns, but Kyler Murray is looking like an MVP candidate for this season. Knock on wood for you.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Kyler Murray back there was looking like Fran Tarkenton. I gotta say, if you pulled the best 10 plays of Kyler Murray's career so far, I think 3 of them at least would be in this singular football game, which is a really, really good sign for this team. Rondale Moore was so explosive in the screen game, which I love to see. He looks really good. His speed from Purdue and his elusiveness and his kind of low center of gravity, tough to take down aspect of his just physique was definitely on display. Christian Kirk, again, like you mentioned, finally living up to that potential. Has that Kyler Murray connection dating back to college, which is nice. But, man, Kyler Murray, very excited. He definitely deserves to be your Gent of the Week. I will get into my Gent of the Week since I couldn't pick Kyler Murray. Sorry, Kyler. But I'm going to go Russell Wilson, the, MVP every single week 1 through 8 of the season. It seems like the early candidate MVP, Russell Wilson, who will inevitably mess things up midseason. But with Russell Wilson, man, kind of the hope for this team, bringing in Rams personnel to their offensive coaching staff to kind of transition them to more of a McVay offense. I think the key to this team is when Russell Wilson could throw for, 23 times, completing 18 passes, have a really efficient, smart day, working out the play action pass, looking really elusive in the backfield. I know he didn't even have a rushing attempt this game, but he was using his feet beautifully. The offensive line looks a little bit improved, though they were playing the Colts, who really don't have a good pass rush. They don't have a lot of good edge rushers or a front seven. So take that with a grain of salt. But again, Russell Wilson looked great today, looked very efficient. And I would say he's first and Kyler Murray is second in terms of lofting deep balls. I just love to watch.
Yeah, Russell Wilson did look really great. It was a frustrating game to watch. Our defense, a lot of people say they're top 5 in the NFL, and Russell Wilson was just having his way with us. Just he had 2 deep balls that were completed. Tyler Lockett's the guy that has like a 40-point game in fantasy or a 0-point game in fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of his 40-point games of the year. They looked great on offense. Chris Carson looked healthy and strong. I know he's someone that struggles with injury. So Russell Wilson is a good candidate for Gent of the Week, Mr. September, as Bill Simmons calls him.
Absolutely. So would you like to get into your sweep of the week?
Before I get to my sweep of the week, I just want to go on the other side of the ball for that game and talk about Carson Wentz. I was pleasantly surprised by Carson Wentz. He didn't look terrible. He just looked like an average quarterback, but he did not look like he was in Philadelphia like he was last year. He was making good throws. His QBR was extremely low with 26.3, but he played fine. I just think, it was very infuriating to see our offensive line, who everybody says is the best offensive line in football, just getting dominated by the Seattle front seven. So who knows if the Seattle front seven is good or we just weren't prepared to play this game. But I was all right with Wentz. But getting to my sweep of the week, I mean, this guy was the talk of the whole NFL offseason. I mean, you couldn't go a day without hearing his name on SportsCenter or on Total Access. But Aaron Rodgers, 133 yards, 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. I mean, he just looked like a lost puppy out there. Like, maybe if you don't go to Hawaii with Miles Teller and your girlfriend, maybe you would have won this game. But Aaron Rodgers, the dude skipped on training camp. It was just a circus this whole offseason. Like, Jordan Love was taking the reps with the number 1 team. So, maybe some of that chemistry was lost with Devontae and Aaron Jones. But Aaron Rodgers just did not look like the MVP candidate that he was last year.
Yeah, I got to take 1 second to dunk on the perennial candidate for overrated player of the year for the past 3 years now, going on year 4, Davante Adams. He's a really good receiver, don't get me wrong. But when you press him with your 3rd string corner and lock him up all game, I mean, that's all you need to know about Davante Adams. You put a hand on him and he shies away from contact. He's not a good physical receiver, despite what his frame says. Anyways, going on Aaron Rodgers, man. Aaron Rodgers, I love how everyone was chalking this up to be the last dance. You're not the Bulls. You don't have Phil Jackson. You're not Michael Jordan. They just didn't focus. It's not basketball, man, where you could be Dennis Rodman and go to strip clubs all night and be Michael Jordan and gamble away your entire retirement fund and your child's social security, and then be fine the next day and play a great basketball game. Like, football is different. Football is so sophisticated and so reliant on game plan and training and timing to the point where you can't get away with that stuff. I thought their offseason looked like a joke on Sunday. Amari Rodgers, their rookie, didn't get in until Jordan Love got in. Randall Cobb didn't catch a pass from Aaron Rodgers, and he was barely running routes out there with Aaron Rodgers. And they had the same group of misfits out there. A.J. Dillon continues to suck, to be honest with you. Aaron Jones, I don't see it with Aaron Jones. I think he's good. He's not very physically talented, though. He's kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none type of guy who kind of relies upon scheme to be good. He's not individually good. And man, this Packers team with Aaron Rodgers has always had an issue, in my opinion, with when they get smacked in the mouth first, they don't punch back. And I think that was the issue with Aaron Rodgers this game. So he definitely is a very deserving candidate for sweep of the week.
I mean, he just looks like disinterested on the football field for this Packers team. I just don't see what happens.
Yeah.
I know I already saw the post on CBS Sports which saying like, oh, the Buccaneers got beat 38-3 by the Saints last year and they won the Super Bowl. Are the Packers going to win the Super Bowl this year? I don't see it. Like Brady has that competitive edge. Like Rodgers, his whole career has just had that feeling of like, oh, I don't care. Like he's competitive. We don't know.
Yeah.
He's always had that feeling of like always just a little disinterested in the game. But do you have anything else to say about my sweep of the week? I just want to talk about the other quarterback in this game as well. But go talk about Rodgers first.
No, I think everything has been said about Rodgers for now. We'll definitely keep an eye on that situation. I think he will bounce back. He'll have a good year. Do I think this team is going to win a Super Bowl, which is this team's ultimate goal? No, I don't think football is a sport where departure looming is a positive thing. I think it's very stupid and silly to assume that the pressure of knowing it's Aaron Rodgers' last season is a positive thing. Maybe in basketball, maybe in baseball, maybe in different sports, but in football, I really, really don't think that's a positive thing. I think it weighs on a team and it's a negative. But going on to Jameis Winston, Jameis Winston played great. He was asked by, I want to say Peter in the game, what your favorite throw of the day was. And he said a throw I made in the first drive of the game. I want to say it was a 15-play drive, which was when he threw it out of bounds. He didn't see anybody open, and he simply scrambled, stepped up in the pocket, got to the point where he could legally throw it out of bounds, and he threw it out of bounds. And I think that kind of sums up Jameis Winston's debut for the Saints.
Yeah, I'm very happy to see Jabu Wins, finally performing at a high level. I mean, he has the talent. We know, like you watch Florida State, he was throwing, the laces off the ball. Like in Tampa Bay, he threw 30 touchdowns. But obviously that 30 touchdown season gets, kind of put down because he threw 30 interceptions. But I think that 1 year with Drew Brees kind of like coaching him up, it did a lot of wonders for him. And also maybe the LASIK surgery for his eyes did wonders for him too. So you can finally see. But, he just played great. He made that one throw with, I think it was the tight end at the back of the end zone where the tight end just mossed the cornerback. Like he was just making good throws. He looked comfortable, wasn't rushing anything. And I think the Saints will be a good team. I know like everybody's saying that the Saints are going to be, more dynamic on offense with Jameis Winston's rather than having, the past 2 years of Drew Brees. They finally, take the top off the defense a little bit. But I think the Saints team will be fun to watch, and maybe we'll be fighting for a wild card spot come week 18.
Absolutely, man. I'm really intrigued by the Saints because I think this is one of the better defenses they've had in the last 10 years. I really do. Now, this defense has taken some hits in terms of injuries. I know Marshawn Lattimore had that wrist injury, and he was having other lower body injuries actually nagging into the game. I think he's going to be out a couple of weeks. And then you have Marcus Davenport, which, man, this was Marcus Davenport's coming out party. He looked fantastic in this game. He's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. If this team could stay afloat, make the postseason, make the dance, I think they are a sneaky, sneaky dark horse. I think it would be very ironic and funny if, the past 5 years, the Saints are always, you look at people's picks to go out of the NFC. People are always picking the Saints. Maybe not last year, but man, I remember there was this 3-year stretch where it was like, there's no doubt the Saints are going to make the Super Bowl. I think this year they're flying under the radar. I think this could be a sneaky, sneaky, sneaky Saints year. Maybe not to make the Super Bowl, but to kind of make some noise in the postseason. They would be a very tough out if they were a wild card team. But going into my sweep of the week, there are definitely quarterbacks who played worse than my sweep of the week. Matt Ryan, Ben Roethlisberger, Kirk Cousins didn't play particularly well, though he did turn it on late. My sweep of the week is Josh Allen, and here's why. Josh Allen was shitty in college. He showed that potential, but he was shitty in college. He was really bad the first 2 years of his career. He was really good last year. So he's had 4 years of really bad quarterback play, then 1 year of really good quarterback play. That 1 year is an anomaly thus far in his career. Of course, it's still way too soon to tell. But man, Josh Allen looked like the Josh Allen of old on Sunday, and it makes me very nervous because he was overthrowing receivers, throwing screens into the dirt. And if this is your Josh Allen, the Bills are screwed because Sean McDermott, I think, is a very overrated coach. He's a defensive minded coach, and their defense keeps getting worse and worse from season to season. If you look at their defensive rating under Sean McDermott, it was at their worst last year. And obviously, in the game on Sunday, the Pittsburgh Steelers did not look good offensively, and really the Bills did not look that good defensively either. Man, I'm pretty worried about the Bills. I still think they're going to win that division, but if Josh Allen plays like the Josh Allen of the old, I don't think this team has a chance.
I have Stephon Diggs in a couple of my fantasy leagues, so I hope Josh Allen plays good because I need Diggs to go off. But yeah, he just looked like he regressed a little bit. He wasn't, like you said, he was throwing balls in the dirt. He was, backpedaling 5 yards and just throwing it off 1 foot, hoping that it gets a wide receiver based off arm strength alone. But yeah, he just had no finesse on the ball like he had a little bit last year. It was sad to see. Josh Allen is a fun player, and when you're like one of your top NFL MVP candidates coming out like that week one, it's just kind of a bad look for the NFL. And you had Big Ben on the other side, so this could have been a premier game to watch. But we have Josh Allen play like that. You have Big Ben play like he has the past 2 years. It's not a fun game for the viewership.
Yeah, and I've said this last season, and I'll continue to say it. I don't think Brian Daboll, their offensive coordinator, is going to stick along for that much longer. So even if Josh Allen shakes this bad performance off, goes on to have a great year, you need to make sure 100% that Josh Allen has developed by the time Brian Daboll leaves, because if he hasn't, and it was kind of Brian Daboll who was able to scheme him and develop him into the quarterback we've seen him play, we've seen him play great, then I think the Bills are in real trouble. So they have to continue to develop him, though. I don't think this is a very talented team on offense, so I will give them a little bit of leeway, besides Stephon Diggs, of course.
Yeah, it's like a band that their lead singer leaves with Daboll and they're still successful. Like if Daboll leaves this band of the Bills needs to still be successful. They can't just fall apart when their offensive wizard leaves the town. Getting into our last topic of the day, we're gonna do a little rapid fire week 2 pick'em. Maybe we'll say a little 1 or 2 words about each game. So first game Thursday night, we have the Giants versus Washington football team. Who do you have winning this game?
Yeah, so maybe a quick sentence on each game. I want to start by saying, thank God we make a week 1 pick'em episode. I was really bad with picks last week. I'm not going to reveal my record on the Pig Skin Pickem. For week 1, I'll be honest, it was probably my worst week of picks ever. It was really bad. I think the Washington football team is going to win this game. Long story short, I think Taylor Heineke was going to be the starter at some point in the season. I think they roll with Taylor Heineke and his mobility in this game.
Scary front seven. Daniel Jones leads the NFL in turnovers since he's entered the league, I believe. The Washington football team is going to give Daniel Jones some fits, and maybe he'll fumble a little bit. Next game, we have the battle of the rookie quarterbacks. We have Mac Jones versus Zach Wilson in the Meadowlands. I have the New England Patriots winning this game. I just think they're more buttoned up than the Jets are, and Belichick is a better coach than Salah is.
Yeah, I have the Patriots winning this game as well. Long story short, Robert Saleh, I have a bit questions with him. What does he do besides motivate his team? I kind of have questions about this coaching staff for the Jets here.
Our next game, we have the Broncos versus the Jaguars. Who do you got here?
So for Broncos Jaguars, I have Broncos. Now, I think the Broncos win was a bit inflated with how bad the Giants ended up doing, but I really like how Teddy Bridgewater has been playing. Looks a little bit more aggressive, so I like the Broncos in this game.
I have the Broncos as well. I think having a viable quarterback rather than having Drew Lock does wonders for this team. And I think the Broncos, looking at the end of the season, I think the Broncos may be able to sneak into a playoff team with to the H2O. The next game we have AFC East rivalry. We have the Bills versus the Dolphins. I have the Bills getting back on track from this game. I just think that they're going to be able to Josh Allen will be able to perform like he did last year, and he's had some successful games against the Dolphins in the past.
We'll continue to agree here. I think the Bills are going to end up scoring 20, 25 points in this game, bounce back offensively, and I just don't trust the Dolphins to put up that amount of points thus far into a turn the ball over era.
Going into our next game, we have the 49ers versus the Eagles. Who do you got here?
I got the 49ers, man. They were a little bit disappointing week one, kind of letting the Lions come back, but I think they have on full throttle this game, the entire game. Better coach, better roster. I think the 49ers won.
Yeah, this game I was a little, hit or miss. I didn't really know who I wanted to win this game. Did you see that Penny Sewell kind of clamped up Nick Bosa pretty good in the game against the Lions? So I think the 49ers are going to win, but I can see the Eagles. I think it might be a little bit of a toss-up. I think the 49ers just know how to plug and play with their players, and they're going to win the game.
Interesting.
Getting to our next matchup, we got the Rams versus the Colts. Hurts me to say, but I think the Rams are going to win. It's just the McVay and Stafford show. This team, I think this team will be in the NFC Championship game by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think the Bolts match up sneakily well against the Rams, but I do have the Rams winning this game. Stafford and the McVay combination is just absolutely lethal.
Getting to our next game, we have the 1970 rivalry of the Raiders versus the Steelers. Who do you have here?
Man, I have the Raiders in this game. I feel like I always pick against these two teams to lose, and they both prove me wrong. So I could probably do no wrong in this game, I guess. The Raiders, I think they're just a bit better coached in terms of offensive schematics, and I think that's going to end up winning out. I don't think the Steelers offense could keep pace with this Raiders offense.
I'm very torn on who I want to win. I flipped back and forth, leading up to this making this podcast, but I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think their defense is the best defense in the NFL. I think they're going to be able to make some plays, get a couple turnovers, which will be the difference in this game. I think the Steelers' offense will be just good enough where they can win this game. Get into our next game. We have the Bengals versus the Bears. Who do you have here?
I have the Bengals winning this game. I think this team looks a little bit more better coached on the offensive side of the ball. They're doing some things with Joe Burrow that's kind of protecting him, getting the ball out of his hand quicker. And this team is very talented, not only offensively in terms of skill position players, but they have a very sneaky good front seven on the defensive line, and their secondary has been rolling. So I have the Bengals in this one.
I have the Bengals as well. I just think, Joe Burrow just brings an energy to Cincinnati that they never had when they were making the playoffs with Carson Palmer and Andy Dalton. I think Joe Cool he brings this aura around him, and I think the Bengals are going to win this game. Getting to the next game, we have the Texans versus the Cleveland Browns. I have the Browns. They're just the better team. They're going to be playing deep into January, and I think they're just going to, Baker will have a pretty solid game. They're going to run the ball well.
Yeah, I think the Browns bounce back in this one. They're a hungry team. They're the better coached team. They're a more talented team, and I think Odell has a big return in this one.
Next, we have the Saints versus the Panthers in NFC South showdown. Who do you have here?
I have the Saints in this one. I know the Panthers just won, but I think it's going to be a close game. But again, the Saints are just simply more talented on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And I do have some questions about Sam Darnold. he looked fine in his debut for the Panthers, but a lot to be left desired for Sam Darnold.
I'm going to go with Jabu wins and the Saints as well. I just think that they're going to be able to push the ball down the field. I just think the Saints defense is too good for, Sam Darnold. We've seen him struggle against pretty good defenses in this past. Into our next game, we have the Vikings at the Cardinals. I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray is going to have another great game. This Vikings team is probably one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. I think Mike Zimmer gets fired at the end of the year, if he even makes it by then. They're just kind of lost out there.
Yeah, Mike Zimmer was looking ridiculously fat on Sunday. I don't know if anyone else noticed that. I don't mean to dunk on the guy, but the man has gained a lot of weight. All you need to know about this game is DeAndre Hopkins versus Patrick Peterson. I got the Cardinals winning this game.
Next game, we have Falcons versus the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers. Who do you got here?
This is a trap game for the Buccaneers. This is one of those games where the Buccaneers are going to play bad and the Falcons are going to play good. With that being said, I still think the Buccaneers are going to win. The Falcons just are one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I think are first in the Spencer Rattler sweepstakes at the moment.
I'm going to go with the Buccaneers as well. I think that defense, we all know how bad it is. With the new resurgence of Antonio Brown, and Brady loves to push it to the air right now. So I think Antonio Brown has a big game again, and the Buccaneers get the dub here. Moving into the next game, we have the Titans versus the Seahawks. I have the Seahawks win this game. We talked about Mr. September. Russell Wilson's going to have another big game. Maybe DK has a big game as well. Probably Tyler Lockett has 0 points, but this Titans defense is pretty atrocious. So give it to the Seahawks.
If you look at the natural progression of the running back position and you look at Derek History's history in the NFL, I think he is due for a natural regression in his career. And I think we saw that this past Sunday. With that being said, I got the Seahawks winning this game.
Moving to our next game, I think this can be the game of the week. We have the Cowboys versus the Chargers. Who do you got winning this game?
Man, I struggled with this game. I've been going back and forth. I'm on Pig Skin Pickem right now. And at the moment, the Cowboys are leading in terms of picks with 56%. I'm going to go against the grain here. I think the Los Angeles Chargers are going to win this game. I just think this Dallas Cowboys secondary is not going to be able to defend Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, which I can't remember the last time the NFL didn't have a receiver named Mike Williams in the NFL. I think that's very weird.
I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think this game is going to be a shootout, and I think I trust Dak a little more to win a shootout versus the young Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Moving on to our Sunday night game, we have the Chiefs versus the Ravens. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're looking to three-peat this year or go to 3 straight Super Bowls, which hasn't happened since, I believe, Jim Kelly in the 90s. So I'm just going to go with the Chiefs. We know how good they are. The Ravens are a good team, but they're being hit extremely hard with the injury bug. So Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, schematically, I just don't think professional clapper John Harbaugh adds enough to the table. And when there's not a significant coaching disadvantage for the Chiefs in terms of kind of getting out the gate, because I think that's been an issue with the Ravens too. I think they have a tendency to kind of start out slow in football games. So I do think the Chiefs are going to win this game.
Last but not least, we have an NFC North game. The Jared Goff-led Lions versus the, I guess you can say Aaron Rodgers-led Packers. Who do you have here?
I think this is going to be a really close game. It feels as though in the Aaron Rodgers era, maybe this was just a Matt Stafford thing, but it feels as though the Lions always play the Packers really, really close. I think this Lions team is very hungry, and the Packers have looked timid, not only this past Sunday, but in the past against the Lions. Again, I think it's going to be close, but the Packers get back on track here.
I'm going to give it to the Packers as well. I don't think that they're going to come out flat like they did 2 weeks in a row. I think Rodgers is going to come out a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and get the dub here. I just think I think personally for the Lions, I think they're going to be a bad team, but I think they're going to be in tough competition each game they're in, because I just think their coach Campbell, he's gonna keep them in most of the games with just pure grit and aggression.
Absolutely. And quick side note, very disappointing DeAndre Swift. Though he's not a murderer, which we learned this past week, he is not good. And he is definitely worse than Jamal Williams, his backup. And I think he ends up surpassing him at some point in the season.
Yeah, but still somehow DeAndre Swift had like 25 points in fantasy, not being a very good player.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for listening. We hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.